Stating a relationship. Coriolis experiment. The expression Coriolis effect first appeared in an 1835 paper by French scientist Gaspard Gustave Coriolis. The Coriolis effect is caused by the rotation of the Earth and the inertia of a mass experiencing the effect. Because the Earth completes only one rotation per day, the Coriolis force is quite small, and its effects generally become noticeable only for motions occurring over large distances and long periods of time, such as large-scale movements of air in the atmosphere or water in the ocean. The effect is responsible for the rotation of large cyclones. In the attempt to show the Coriolis effect taking place in two different hemispheres at the same time, I contacted a childhood friend, Cesare, from Kenya, who now lives in South Africa. It was my second attempt at contact with him since I left Africa. There were some intangible barriers between him and I. The physical distance between us, the time since we last met and interacted as friends, approximately 11 years, and the time difference of 1 hour. The experiment was designed after my memory of an experience Cesare and I had had on a school field trip to the equator in Kenya, where a local resident had figured out that he could make money on tourists by demonstrating the Coriolis effect with this makeshift setup. He would perform the experiment 3 times, once on the northern side of the equator, once on the southern side of the equator, and in the end, right on the equator. Each time he predicted in which direction the floating material would spin. Counterclockwise on the southern hemisphere, clockwise on the northern hemisphere, and without any rotation when centered directly on top of the equator. The design was of simple method, to replicate crudely the circumstances under which we had originally seen the experiment performed. The required items were as follows: bowl or bucket of some sort to contain the water, with a hole in the bottom plugged with a finger to prevent leakage, and some buoyant material to illustrate the direction of the rotation. The key difference would be that instead of being so close to the equator, the experiment would be performed with much greater distances between the northern and southern hemispheres. The theory being that the closer one goes to the poles, not the magnetic poles, the greater the Coriolis effect becomes. The problem with this experiment is that it is based on a false premise. The effect is not visible on such small quantities of fluids, as the Coriolis effect is much too weak. If the Earth rotated more than once within 24 hours, it might be able to have an effect. But this is not the case. In order to eliminate the unwanted variables and only test the Coriolis effect, the quantity of water would be required to be still for approximately a week to reduce any chance of the momentum from pouring the liquid into the container was sufficiently benign. Also, the shape of the container could create angular momentum if it was not completely flat at the bottom, which would also cause a rotation that should not be attributed to the Coriolis effect. So upon realizing this experiment could not prove anything, it was fitting that Cesare was not able to comply with my request, as his life was spinning at a different speed than my own. He didn't drop the ball, it just veered off course due to the difference in our rotation. The boundaries of the given time for the attempt and the 11 years since he and I last spoke did not permit a demonstration of the Coriolis effect, but a relationship has been stated.